Welcome to Flow Forms. Today we're going to cover how to add flow to a form. In our previous video we created our form and we added accessibility to it, and now we can add flow. So let's assume that we created our form's accessibility and we gave it accessibility to teachers. And so when the teacher fills this out, we want them to send it to their principal. And so how this works is we're going to add a flow group for the principals. And we already have a principals group. If we didn't, we could click this create new group and be able to add a new group. So we're going to select principals. And if we wanted to be able to view the users in the principals group, we could click this and it would show us all the users in there. And now for the flow group type, there's only 4 options. There's select one, which means that the user selects one person from a list. So they would get a list of all the users that were in principals, and they would be able to select their principal from that list. There's select multiple. Select multiple means that the user can select multiple people from a list. So instead of being able to select one principal, they could select multiple and have their form go to all those people they've selected. There's also an all group, which means that the user doesn't select at all. It would just send to every one of the principals in this group. Obviously, in this case, that wouldn't make sense. The last one is a notify only. It means that they don't approve or deny anything with the request. They're just simply notified that the request has been submitted, and then it would move on to the next group. So in this case, we're going to say select one. And we won't cover the escalation for this. We'll add another group and we'll put escalation there and talk about it then. The button options are pretty straightforward. You have the ability to toggle these 3 options. So if you said you only wanted the principals to be able to approve, you didn't want them to be able to deny or request info or send back to user, you could click all of these. And now that flow group would only be able to approve. The principals would only be able to approve. Obviously, approving either finalizes the request or it sends it to the next group in the flow chain. To deny would send it back to the user with a note. Requesting information from user is within the system. The approver can ask information directly from the user and it would go right to them and they could fill that out. We'll cover that in another video. And the send back to user is exactly what it sounds. You can send the form back to the user with a note explaining why they need to change something. The entirety of the form would still be in place and they could just change it and then restart the process of the flow. So we'll leave all those in place for now and we'll click add flow. And let's say that after the principals have approved this, we want it to go to human resources. So we're going to click add flow. And we will say the next group is human resources. And if we want to see who's in human resources, we click this button. For the flow group type, we actually don't want the principal to select one person from HR. We want to send it to the entire department. And so we're going to say all group. So when the principals go to approve, they don't have to select anyone. It would simply go to, when they hit approve, it would go to the entire group of human resources. And we want human resources to be able to escalate this. And escalation just means that you can select another person from a group to be able to send this request to see the request information and then to respond back with an action. So they could fill out notes saying that they need to have something changed, or should we be able to continue this on, basically just getting advice and information from the person you're escalating it to. So we'll say yes, and we want to say that they have the option, human resources has the option to escalate to the superintendent for specific questions. Again, you can show the users in the superintendent group. We'll leave all the buttons the same, and we will add our flow. Now, you can edit a flow simply by clicking one of the buttons. So if we decided we didn't want human resources to be able to send back to user, we could update that, and now they can't send back to user. We can change the sorting. So let's say we actually wanted the principals to be after human resources. You could change it, and now it would go to human resources first, and then human resource would send to principals. We don't want that, obviously. It doesn't make any sense. If we click on here, yeah, you can edit and change. If we wanted to remove this flow group, we could click remove flow. And now it goes, now when a teacher filled it out, it would just go to human resources. But again, we don't want to do that. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's select principals. It's a select one, no escalation, and we'll add the flow. And just so you can see what it looks like, we will add one more group. We want to send this, human resources needs to send it to payroll. but we don't have a payroll group, so let's real quickly create payroll. And we want to add some users, so we're going to add a couple of users in here. This will be our payroll department. We'll create the group, and now we have the ability to send to payroll. And we want it to send to the all group. So we'll add this flow. And so it looks like this. Oops, human resources needs to be right here. So we have our principals. The user would fill out the form. They would select their principal from the list. It would go to the principal. When the principal approved it, it would go to the entirety of the human resource department. Anyone could log in and access the form and move it on. Once someone moves it on, once they approved it, they would send to payroll. Payroll could have all of the actions, all of these: send back to user, request info, deny, approve. And once they've approved it, assuming they've approved it, then it would notify each person, the person that approved it in HR, the principal that approved it, and then the teacher that filled it out. And it would all be then in the My Request page for the teacher. That's it for adding flow. Now let's see it in action.